Hello, everybody. Corey here. I'm here to do the monthly review, in which we'll go over the stock prices, the distributions. We'll look at them historically because this will include all of those. We'll look at what the total returns have been for all of these, and then we'll rank these as well. So, in this first section here on the left with the blue headers, we have the current stock price. And then if we took and did an average of all of the monthly distributions in column C, then in column D, we just have a yield based on that. And then we have a monthly yield. And then column E is the annual. And then again, column F would be the annual yield. And then column G, we're ranking these here based on yield only, not total return. So here we are. We're just in alphabetical order at the second. And then if you're like, I'm just income and I just want to get the most money I can every single month. Well, this is what it looks like on an average yield. Okay. Now, here Misty has only been out 2 months. That is at the top. Just know that's, a brand new fund. And then we have some numbers skipped here because I have more than just Yieldmax ETFs on the spreadsheets. I have, I don't know, a whole bunch, 40 or so, and only 20 of those are Yieldmax. So that's why we have some numbers missing there. But we have obviously we have 3 here. Now, Tesla, that one, we know that, again, these are the average, good, bad, whatever. Tesla's split adjusted. But of course, the stock price is technically also split adjusted. But then, of course, with the stock being down significantly, but still having all that historical with those prices or with those distributions, that makes that average pretty high there. But then we have that one. We have Colony and Misty there being over 100%. And of course, we'll go down to the individual ones. But then we have, between the 6 to 10 there, we have AMD, AMDY, AIYY, and Murney. And then, of course, we go on down. Squee, OARC, Nefli, NVIDIA, Phoebe, PayPay, Dizzo, MSFO, Amazon, AMZ, Apple, GUI, JPMO, and Zomo. All right. So we'll go here. We can, let's see. Let me do that and then check mark. Okay. Let me zoom out just a little bit because I can't make the bar at the bottom go away. All right, so here we can include all of these. What I do need to do, though, let's filter this back in alphabetical order for this instance. All right, so now we can see all of those Yieldmax ETFs here, and we can see all of their distributions since inception. And then, of course, these are color-coded by ETF, so you can tell which one are the highest or the lowest easier. You can see, though, in the majority of these, you can see more red for most of them on the left-hand side. And then then see more green on the right-hand side. Of course, Tesla is the exception at the bottom because it has started, as you can see, started out green, has gone red. Again, these are split adjusted. Otherwise, the numbers would be totally skewed. So everything Tesla is split adjusted. But if we go down through here, AIYY this past month paid, next to the lowest distribution. Of course, when we go through our other spreadsheet and our weekly too, we have the total range of what they've paid out. But it's on the extreme low range. But of course, in this case, we know they lost $5 or $6 a share price. that's why they're down to like $12. But because of the synthetic position and when they bought into it, which was right at earnings at its peak, and then it just fell from there. And it hasn't even had its next earnings yet, and that already expired, and had to get that pay to close that out. I think it was, I don't know, 10 or $11 million. But anyway, so that one, had a very low payout. AMDY is having the same issue with the low stock price, and it is also the second to the lowest. You can see the previous one was back in December. And then as far as AMSI go, this last distribution is the highest distribution it's ever paid out of the 9 months, or the 9 distributions there. And then Aptly, it's sort of, it's in the middle there, at least as of this month. And then we have Coney here. Again, it's sort of like in the middle. It's a little bit on the higher end if you look at some of these other ones in there, but it's still in the green. Same thing with Dizzo there. It's in the green towards the higher end. And then if we go to Phoebe, it actually, obviously, I did the distribution video, and honestly, I haven't even had a free time to look at this since. I didn't even realize it only paid 90 cents. Like, I read them and I do them, but I haven't had time to go back and compare, do anything special. Whatever I do, you basically see the video almost immediately after. But yeah, 90 cents. It was so consistent there for 3 months straight. I guess they just couldn't do it anymore. So it's in the middle there for last month. And then if we go down to GUI, that's the highest distribution. It's significantly higher. And I don't remember if it was this one or not, but I pointed out several of these, looking at some of the estimates that, keep in mind, if, this would be the highest payout if they've paid out. And it looks like we had 2 of those this month. But yeah, their lowest end here, you're looking at 23 cents, and the highest end was only, you have one at 42, and then you had several at 39, so 67. That's a significant increase there. But that's their highest payout. JPMO, they were still in the green there, so obviously not at the highest. It's actually more in the middle there. Murney here, it's yellow in the middle. MSFO, it's about in the middle there too. It looks like 57 cents with the little orange. And of course, Misty, we've only had 2. So you'll have red or green. Not much of an option there. Then we have Nefli here. You can see how it started out, red, really red. And then it just started getting it in the yellow and greenish. It had that $1.26 way outlier there, so that one makes the other ones more yellow, because this is color coded, or this is on a range based on whatever the lowest number is and the highest number. Then everything gets shaded in the middle based on the numbers. And then NVIDIA, I was surprised that they paid the $2.61 that they paid the previous month, and then they dropped down to $1.20. Still, obviously, not the lowest that they've done. They were actually sort of in the middle up front, and they went in the low end, and then they were in a high end on the end. So, OARC here. So they are in the yellow, but that's because of those first few payments. You can see those first 3 months were green on the left-hand side, which makes these look bad, but they're really not. That 53 cents, I was like, man, that's really good, especially for those that stuck it out, because look at September all the way through February, 20, 30 cents. That's all you were getting. I know I ended up selling out sometime around in there, probably, whatever. I got positive, and I know I held out a little bit longer. But, that's decent. A $12 stock paying 50 cents, 53 cents there. But anyway, let's move on down to PayPay here. Obviously, last month, you can see that was the worst paying month, 47 cents. So I'm happy to see that this month is 94 cents. I'm not sure why that one's not totally green, which then makes me think that might be color coded with the line below it. So let me check that. All right, there we go. Yeah, it was combined with the line below it. So, but now we can clearly see that 94 cents was the biggest payout because it's the darkest green. So we had the worst month, and then the best month, back to back right there. And then we have Squee here, so it paid in the middle there. And then Tesla, of course, these last 2 months are the worst payouts. And then Zomo, it's sort of in the middle there still. But I know others have mentioned it, and I love it. I like being able to see the whole thing and then easily look at the colors here. And then here, so in these next two columns, I don't know why I have such a big gap there. I don't know that I showed this last month, but I know I had it on there the first month. But column AI, I found them hidden on the end, and I moved them up. Of course, I'll need to remember to do this on my original tab, because this is just for this month. But column AI is just to show the difference between the 2 months. So you can see like April and May, it went down 32 cents there. And then the next column is the last dividend to their overall average. So like this is 41 cents, but AIYY, their average is, right here, 79 cents. And then it's just taking those two, so it's down, 38 cents to that average. And then these colors look a little weird because, again, it's just, I think it's the exact same color codes, but it's just where they fall here. And there's a lot more orange going up through there, which means a lot of more middle numbers there, but it does seem to have more of a yellow tint to it. All right, I changed them a little bit just so they're not all orange, but I don't want them to be the exact colors as the left because I don't want it to seem like those to go together, because they do not. In fact, these are actually going up to down, so the difference for the last 2 months, as you can see, the 248s at the bottom are darker green, and then those reds in that column AI, and then the column NAJ. So anyway, these are in alphabetical order, so it's easy for you to find which ones here, but the ones that were up the most from the previous month, as you can see, were PayPay, and maybe it's a little harder, so let's just pull this over. So you can see PayPay and Squee, and then GUI was up a lot more, and then we have AMZ and Marnie. So those were up the most. As far as the ones that were down the most was obviously NVIDIA and Misty, which we knew without having to see that. We do have AMDY that was down 60 cents, Coney down 51 cents. But then if we look at the last dividend to the average, AMZ was up again 36. Coney was actually up to the average 37, GUI 30, PayPay 30, and Netflix 22. So AMZ was actually green on both of this, looking at it to the average and the previous month, along with GUI. Netflix was just a little bit green, and then we had PayPay and Squee. And then, of course, if we look at these as far as which ones were down to their average, significantly Misty, of course, again, 2 months. Tesla, that one's known. And then AIYY and AMD. And then they had the double whammies, right, with those AIYY and AMD being both red. Of course, Misty's both red because there's only 2 months. And then, of course, you have a bunch of, like, in the middles, like OARC, right? I mean, it's 1 cent, 5 cents. It's not much of a difference there. But anyway, just another way to look at some data if you like to look at data and had a question. Because I know I get questions about things. So then I'm like, well, sometimes it's just easy just to add it to the workbook. So if you had the question, I'm sure there's somebody else that had the question. Now here in these columns, these are percentages, same thing. Well, the other side is, the actual dollar amount. These are the actual yields. So you can see which months had the better or worse yields, which may not be the same necessarily as the payout, depending on what the stock price was at that time. So just looking somewhat similar, a little similar in the color codes. It's not exactly the same. You do see more red on the left than the right, but you do see a little bit more red, I think, up there in the January, February in the top. But anyway, just if you want to see this is here. I don't want to go over that too much there. And then we have down here on the end, we're looking at the overall return for these. So in this case, so those are the same. So let me do this, because these actually are ranking. Okay. Yeah, I wasn't going to, but let me just go ahead and hide this. They do go together, but the color codes are different. There we go. So now that one's freeze paint isn't done there. So we can see here in column CF, this is the number of months. So let's just do this. Let's sort it by, let's do oldest. So these are been out the longest, all the way to the newest. Doesn't necessarily correlate to their ranking as far as that they've been out longer, they've recovered, or anything like that. But just to show you here so you can see. And then, again, I'll do this back to alphabetical order if y'all want to glance at that in alphabetical order for any particular one that you're wanting to look at. And then we'll look at, I'll go ahead and do this by ranking, sort of comparing them to each other, because that's what most people want to do in this case, which is why I have those on there. Now these we don't skip numbers on because I don't think I've added this data down here for all the rest of the ones that I have on my sheet. But we go to 41, yeah. But obviously we have the number of months, the ticker, the start price, meaning what, on the charts it said that they started out with the difference with Tesla because that one is split adjusted. And then the current stock price, the dividends that they have received to this date, and then the return for that. And then, of course, return dollar amount, return percentage, and then the ranking for that. So we can see since inception that NVIDIA has increased from $20 to $25.67. But they've also had distributions of a total of $13.63. So you had a $5.66 increase plus the total divs. I haven't thought about it before. I don't know. I guess it's beneficial. Of course, I'd have to update it on my other sheet. I tend to just combine a bunch of, I don't know why I'm doing that, formulas together and don't always work the math out, show my work, as, the school teacher would say, right? I hated that. But I was like, if I can do it in my head, why do I have to show the work? It's always for the partial credit, right? And this way, the only reason I was thinking it is because I was like, well, you can easily see where the stock price change was if this was here. Besides having to look, Let's just do this because I said it, so I started typing it. Of course, because of how these are set up. But I thought I did this portrait mode last time, but I went back and it showed I did it landscape, so I thought I'd do it the same way. So if you have any issues, let me know. I can always, re-record this in portrait mode for those of you that might not be able to see it well because you're on your phones or whatever else. But anyway, we can see the price change here. Yeah, as far as the stock price. And then we have our total divs, and then we have that return. So NVIDIA here, it's if you would have bought it at its start price, for $20.01, in the 12 months, have almost made your money back at this point. We're at 96.4% return there. And then, yeah, just basically going down. So the top 5, we have NVIDIA, Coney at 83%, Misty 80%, again, 2 months. AMZ, so it is in the top 5, but the percentage is low. It's not as high as the others, which is why it's in red. I don't remember exactly what I did here. Obviously, it looks like at least below 50% was red, at least above 80% is green. So not sure what the 50 to 80% was in there, but AMZ here has had a 42% return, Squee 40%, Phoebe 31%, Murney 30%, MSFO 29%, MD or AMDY 21%, Netflix 18%. And then that gets us through the top 10, and then we have the rest of them, right, that are, less. So we have PayPay 17%, return Dizzo 15%, JPMO 12%, Aptly 6%, GUI 3%, and then OARC 1% or 23 cents. Of course, this doesn't account for taxes because everybody's situations are different countries, it's different. So then we have here negative returns, which are Zomo, Tesla, and AIYY. So Zomo is negative 0.4%, Tesla is negative 6.7%, and AIYY is negative 18%. That synthetic really screwed this ETF, and it's, not going to recover. So I know we've talked about taking bets on which one will be the next one to reverse split, and it's a possibility that it will be AIYY. But anyway, this is looking at the total return for all of these. What I did add to last month's video, because I thought about it while I was recording, some like, some may not, but it's just looking here. So I noted these so I can remember which 2 I did. But this month, I named it monthly vid 1 and 2 just because that's how I had done it. But, this has the inception dates on here. Of course, we already have the start and now, which we did on the other side. And then the total divs. So this does have, but this doesn't have just the Yieldmax ETFs here, right? And then we see that percentage in column Y. We're also looking at it with the underlying, and if we want to look at the NASDAQ, S&P, and Russell, just to see how those compare. And then, of course, I have a winner over here in this column, just to show, who did better. Of course, it looks like since inception, most of the time it was the underlying, and we see in 6 other cases, though, it was actually the NASDAQ. It doesn't mean necessarily that, that it was wrong to do it one way or another. You can look at AMZ right here, the ETF, it has a 38% return. The underlying has had 46%. So yeah, the underlying is better here, but it's still not bad. I mean, you can look at some of these other ones and it's way, way worse. then you look below, even with Apple, Apple, okay, it's up 4%. I'm sorry, Apple is up 4%. Apple's up 10%, but the NASDAQ, during this time was up 33%, and the S&P 25. Even the Russell did better than, Apple has. So, yeah, most of the time, the Russell over here is the worst. But only reason these were added on here is because, I had these already built in this workbook because this was for a different reason. And when we look at, QQQI and JEPI and IWMY, those are the three, which then this is probably not the NASDAQ 100, and it's probably the NASDAQ composite. I don't know. I'd have to go back and look at the formula to see, but close enough. But yeah. So this is just to give you another view, another way to compare these, and not just limit it to the workbook that I have over there, just looking at the ETFs. And then this one's where you can choose the own dates. Again, this one's been since the inception of those. This one is date specific. Last month, I think I just put in there whatever the distributions dates were or something. In this case, I went ahead and just did the month of April to see. Again, the start price, end price, the distributions, and then if we were looking at trying to rank these just in that one a month, I forget that messes up the other. Hold on. I should probably change this. Again, this has several other ones on it. And then I have some things hidden that you can't see, and I have something on that first line. But if we were ranking these, you can see that in the month of April, it looks like, PayPay did best here. And then GUI, and then Murney, Tesla, Zomo, Apple, and number 10. Sorry, I was looking at number 11. So number 10 must be on one of those other ones. But AMZ didn't make the cut. It was number 11, yeah. And because I did this for the month of April, these are pulling in the distributions for the month of April, and not necessarily, it's not May. But that's, comparing those. And then, of course, over here, so I won't have that, but here we have, again, the ETF, the underlying NASDAQ or the NASDAQ composite, one of those, S&P and the Russell. And then, of course, the winner. As far as looking at those of which one had the highest return, which wasn't necessarily great because, most of these are negative. There's only a few that were positive. Zomo at the bottom, Tesla and Tesla, PayPal. Yeah, there's just a slight few in there. So even if they're green, that doesn't mean they did better. Now, if we were looking just at the ETF and the underlying, of course, I've got all of them on there. I should create another formula on this, similar to the one I have on the daily. And I can't format either. Okay, so we're just not going to do that. But, and that would have been wrong anyway because these are swapped here. So AIYY did better, AMD did better, AMZ did better. So far, those three did better than the underlying. Appley and Apple are the same. Coney was better, Dizzo, Phoebe. And I just assume, right, if these are negative. If the underline's negative, the ETF did better. And actually, we could just sort of sit back and see, I guess with the exception of JPM there. You can see those dark reds on the underlying, and then so you can see that the ETFs did better on all of those with the exception of JPM and JPMO. It looks like the underlying, it went down 4% when JPMO had went down 8%, and it had I assume that was due to earnings. It was the first one to have earnings in April. So it was a bad month. So the ETFs did better than most of the underlines just for that, month. We had a few outliers there. Let's just look at those. So AMC still did better, like we already said. Apple, Tide. So obviously Alphabet did better. They had good earnings. They went up more than GUI. Moderna went up 1% more than Murni for the month. Nvidia did 1% better than Nvidia did. I'm trying to make sure I don't confuse myself on me having these columns swapped. And then, of course, PayPay went up 6%, while PayPal only went up 1%. So that's interesting, which makes me wonder why. I feel like I need to look into that. And then Tesla and Zomo did better than Tesla. Tesla and Exxon did better than Tesla and Zomo because they went up. But anyway, again, just a few different ways to look at things. And then we just look at these once a month. So hope y'all found something in here. I know there's a lot of data in here and lots of different things to look at and different ways to look at data. So hopefully there was something you found useful. If there's something that you're wanting to see that I might not have here already that you think would be easy to add or whatever, then just let me know. Anyway, thanks for reviewing all this with me, and I will talk to y'all later. Thanks. Bye.